Hey you guys, so I'm back, and can we get a round of applause for me consistently uploading a video a few days after the last one I just uploaded. I'm trying to be more consistent, you guys, I really am, but it's hard with everything I have going on. And I'm going to be doing an ombre nail, or like a full set with snowflakes at the ends of the nails, and you can see here I already messed up. That fade is horrible, so I had to go in and add another bead to fix it. And you can see here I'm kind of like going over it with some monomer to kind of take off some of the powder that I don't want there. So you can do that, like if there's ever like something that you don't want, just dip your brush in monomer and kind of just like brush it over the acrylic. Obviously not whenever it's still super wet, but as you get more advanced, you'll like learn like little things that you can do to correct something that you've done. But you can see I added another bead to make the fade more seamless, and it really helped. And I'm just adding the snowflake at the ends of the nails, or the tips of the nails. And even though I don't have a lot of acrylic at the tips of the nails, or maybe like hardly any at all, the snowflake is still gonna stick there, because even though you can't see it, it's still there. So whenever that acrylic dries, the snowflake is gonna dry with it, and it's not gonna move unless I like purposely go and move it or try to take it off. So that's like why it's really important to make sure that there's no acrylic around the cuticle area, because even though you can't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not there. Because a lot of times things that people don't know is if you put like a lot of primer, your acrylic can sometimes seep underneath the cuticle area and get stuck underneath there. So that's why it's important to use certain cuticle bits. Like I use that cone one that I use. I don't really know if it's called a cone bit, but in my last video I showed you guys the cuticle bit that I use, and I always use that one. I don't always show it in my videos because I honestly hate showing the filing process, but in this video I actually am going to show you guys a really up close view of my drilling process. But yeah, so I added 2 beads on most of the nails, maybe 3 beads if I needed it, like a small bead. But I usually add 2 beads because you can sometimes see like the shadow underneath the acrylic. If you just do 1 bead, you can kind of see like the shadow underneath of like the nail tip and the natural nail where they meet together. So I do 2 beads to try to cancel that out and hide it, and that usually works for me. And you can see like the more that you kind of like add a bead here and there, it makes the blend and the fade like more seamless, because you don't want this to have like a harsh fade. And whenever you go in and add your clear, it's just going to make that fade look even more faded out. So you can see all I'm doing is just adding the snowflake just right there at the tips, and don't be scared for them like to move. As long as you let it dry right there, it should be perfectly fine. What else can I say? Whenever I put my bead right there at the cuticle area, you always want to make sure that you're holding the nail down to make sure that it's not seeping down into the cuticle or over flooding or anything like that. So you can see on this nail, again, I messed up. The fade is not good. And usually that happens whenever I tend to focus a lot of my time at the cuticle area at first, and I don't go ahead and blend it down. It starts to kind of like, dry and settle there. So then whenever I try to go fade it out, it doesn't really want to fade as good as it would if I would have handled it in the first place. So that's whenever I'll have to go and add a few more beads here and there just to make it more seamless. But yeah, I'll let you guys watch these next 2 nails, and then I'll be back to explain my capping process. Okay, so now for the capping. So really it doesn't, okay, for me, first of all, I either cap with one bead or I might do two beads. Maybe sometimes I might do three, but most of the time it's either one bead or two beads. And on the pinky I did two beads, but then on the next finger you'll see I did one bead. So it really just depends on how I think the nail looks, what I think the nail needs. As you keep like doing nails over and over and over again, you'll start to find stuff that works for you. You'll start to find out what the nail needs, or how the nail will look best with, or what it will look best with. So I went ahead and put this bead at the very end. And then I'm going to go in with another bead and add it more towards the top. And whenever I add beads near the cuticle area, I never make them super like thick and bulky. You don't want that. You want to kind of, blend it in, like make it seamless into the cuticle area. You don't want it to be a big bump at the back of the nail, because the apex is not supposed to be at the very back of the nail. And I know I'm always talking about the apex. The next 1, 2, or 3 videos that I upload, I will try to make it solely like dedicated to apex and like where your apex should be and how to make an apex. I'll probably do it on my practice hand so that I can like move it how I want to move it and show you guys how I want to show you. But yeah, so if you guys have been watching me for a while, then you'll know, or you'll notice that whenever I get towards the bottom, I like for the bead to be more on the drier side so that I can make this boxy kind of tip, and it'll give me the shape I want already. So you can see here I'm kind of just barely moving it, because you can see now that it's drying, I can really move it how I want it to move and how I want the nail to look. So here I'm kind of just shaping it to how I want it to be at the very ends, and this is going to make your filing, like your hand filing process at the very end, super fast, and you won't really have to shape that much because the nail is already shaped. Also, one thing, so you can see here, like it's done, like that 1 or 2 beads that I did, I wasn't even paying attention if I did 2, but I think I did 1. But you can just see with that it's done. So for the next one, I think I'm going to do 1 bead. And so for the last video that I did, I remember I told you guys with the snowflakes, it's okay if a few of the little edges come off of the snowflake, just as long as the whole snowflake is still there. You won't really be able to tell. But with these metal, I guess they're metal. There's some type of metalish material, I think. But these are gold snowflakes, so they're not just like these little paper things that you can bend. You can bend these, but they're not paper. So whenever you file over these, I believe, I haven't done it, but what I think will happen is they'll kind of turn like a silverish color instead of it being gold. So you want to make sure that you don't file like these. If you file like a part of this, like you'll probably be able to tell, but I'm not sure because I haven't made that mistake yet. So just try to put as much, don't try to put as much, just try to make sure that you have enough acrylic at the tips of the nails that you won't end up filing on top of the gold snowflake, because you don't want to file on top of these. You want them to be secure and capped as best as they can be. Okay, now for example with this nail, You can see that as I'm bringing the clear acrylic down, it's not as thick as I want it to be. So you can see I'm kind of having to stretch it out. So if I was to fall over this nail, I think eventually I would hit the snowflake and I would make that mistake that I was just talking about. So you'll see me go back in and add another bead at the tip of the nail to give it that thickness at the end to make sure that I don't file on top of the snowflake. So you can see I'm just kind of patting it, kind of want it to dry a little bit. I don't want to start moving it whenever it's still like super wet. I kind of just want to let it sit there for like 2, maybe 3 seconds and then start moving it and putting it where I want, you know, shaping it how I want. And that is how it should look whenever you're done capping. So you can see I'm not going to really need to do that much filing because they basically already looked shaped. But now I'm going to get into my e-filing process. So you can see here I start from the bottom and then I go over the sides. And you saw how much acrylic like just came off. It's really acrylic and then some of the nail tip that gets stuck underneath there whenever I use my e-file to shape the nail tips. But then I go over the cuticle area, I go back around. I'm gonna have this going in real time so you guys can see on some of the nails. And then, so you can see I'm going over the tip of the nail to take off the little bulkiness that I have, but I'm not filing too much to where I'm gonna touch the snowflake. Okay, now I'm looking down the center of the nail, and as I'm doing this, I'm taking off the bulk that's there, that doesn't need to be there. And you can see I just keep doing this. You really have to have a firm, steady hand whenever you're doing this, because you don't want your e-file to slip and then accidentally cut your client or something. So as I'm doing this, I'm like keeping a steady hand. You can see like I'll rub the nail every once in a while to make sure everything feels nice and smooth. But I just do the same thing over again. Go around the cuticle area, go underneath the nail, go around the side, look down the center of the nail. Just look at the nail from all angles and make sure everything looks smooth, and feel it to make sure that everything is smooth. Okay, so now that you guys saw that part, I hope it really helped you guys with your e-filing process. Like I said before in my last video, e-file is not necessary. It's just something that I prefer. There are nail techs that don't even use an e-file, and they even prep without an e-file, and that's completely fine if it's your preference. It's all about preference. So if you prefer to use e-file, then use e-file. If you prefer to use a hand file, then use a hand file. Hand file might, take more work because it's just your hand going. You have no kind of machine helping you, but it's whatever you want to do. Whenever you're doing any type of clear nail look, you want to make sure you go back and add the top coat underneath the nail to make it look more glassy and give it that more clear look. And but yeah, that's basically it, you guys. If you have any more requests, please put them down below so I'll know what to upload, what you guys want to see. I will be doing a review on my Makart items that I received too, and I've been using their drill bits as well, so be on the lookout for that. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back very soon.